So on Reish Mem Tet, everybody got it? Way down at the bottom, the last paragraph, starting with the word Vihine. Hine einechem ra'os gedulas ha'odam uchvodo. Behold, your eyes, after having read and considered the subject of the previous discussion, behold, your eyes should see the gedulas ha'odam uchvodo, the greatness of a person and his honor, his glory. Asher gedalo v'nisa'o HaKadosh Baruch Hu al kol ha'yetzurim, who God has elevated above all other creations. V'hi shlito al kol briyos hatachtonim, and gave him sovereignty over all of the lower beings. This is mankind. This is humanity. This is your fellow person, your fellow human, your fellow Jew. Somebody who has the holy neshama that we've been discussing, and all of the wonderful things that people are able to attain through the intelligence and the enlightenment that he was given by God through the neshama. Vein koyach b'pei l'saper roiv peulos asher gifal ha'odam ba'olam hatachton, and the mouth cannot speak and communicate, cannot express all of the myriad of different things that a person can do in the world. Vaf boilam elyon, and even in the spiritual realm. Sholech ha'odam ta'avasoi v'ya'uf v'yatush al kanfe ha'chochma. A person can send his desires into the spiritual realm and cause them to fly through with the wings of wisdom. So that a person's intelligence can actually set into motion things in the spiritual, non-physical realm as well. Even though the body of a person is ambulatory through the world, like animals and crawling things, his soul traverses the supernal realm, mirov hochma, because of its wisdom and enlightenment, v'hitis boinen, v'yodas hochmas mada, shebelyonim v'hochmas mada, sheberakim. The mind can therefore help a person understand, comprehend the wisdom to be known regarding things in the supernatural, metaphysical plane, and also things having to do with the celestial realm, the stars, the planets, the galaxies, the pattern, the movement, the rotation of the stars and their distances. Even though a person's body is quite small, his soul is greater and more expansive than heaven and the earth. Because a person can understand, comprehend, perceive the height and the pathways of the sun and the constellations and all of their various parts. Hakol nichnas b'neshama. The knowledge of all this is included within a person's neshama, his soul. Isn't that amazing? V'kevan she'akol kolul ba, since everything is included within the intelligence and enlightenments of one's neshama, imken higdoyle mikulam, it's greater than all. Because that intelligence includes not only the sun, but all of the galaxies. Not only the sun, but all of the other stars, and the constellations, and the galaxies, which means that the mind, the neshama, which includes the knowledge of all of these things, is greater than all of those things. Because without that, it wouldn't be able to hold it all. But it's all right there in your cranium. You got the sun, you got the moon, you got the constellations, you got the galaxies, you've got abstract, calculus, you've got microbes. Everything is in your brain. You've got it all there. It's huge, right in your cranium. Because it's impossible to place all of the waters of the sea into a small flask. A node is really not a flask as much as it is there's a special word for it. But like a leather jug, what's that called?
Leather jug.
Yeah, it's a leather pouch where you put less liquids in.
Canteen.
It's like a canteen, but I was thinking of a different word. So if somebody calls you an airhead, it's a compliment. You're able to conceive of all of the air that exists within your head, and all of the waters of the sea are also in your head, and your ears don't leak. It's all there. It retains it all. You and I were just having a conversation, although you couldn't even hear it. That's the whole thing about the mental thing. That's what he's talking about here. Your neshama, right, sends like waves of influence into existence, not in the physical plane, but in the intellectual, spiritual, metaphysical plane. And you can call somebody. You call somebody. Bring. Right. He hears the phone ring, and the answer by calling, wow, I haven't spoken to Yitzhak in quite some time. Let me give him a call. Hey, Yitzhak. Whoa, you can't believe, I was just thinking about you. And you called. Really? Wow, that's amazing. Right? It wasn't him who called Yitzhak, it was Yitzhak who called him. And he was answering the call by dialing. It happens all the time. Yeah? You're just sitting around doing your thing, minding your own business, and all of a sudden you're like, and somebody's locked on you. You see him staring at you. He was calling you, right? You heard it in your subconscious. You turn around and there he is looking at you. Boom. Yeah. In any case, these type of telepathic waves, they go, and they have an influence. And that's why, for example, things like Ein Hara, the evil eye, is such a frightening thing in Judaism. Not because we're superstitious, right? But when the idea behind the evil eye is that it's not the eye, it's the thoughts behind the eye. The person is thinking bad thoughts about another person. Those thoughts create an energy, and that energy ripples through the spiritual realm and can actually have an effect on the person that he's thinking about. Yeah, and it's similar to the way in which you might throw a pebble in a pond. Boom. Until it reaches the end of the pond and it bumps into the shore. So a person, boom, it has that thought, it lands into the spiritual realm and it sends things into motion until it finally reaches there. So if it was a bad thought, it can harm the person. How does this work? Because our bodies are just bodies, but our bodies are connected to the soul. The body's not connected to the spiritual realm, but the soul is. If our bodies have an effect on the soul has an effect on the spiritual realm, and therefore that can connect the things that we do, or even speak, or even just think, that can cause, through the connection of the soul into the spiritual realm, a series of events that take place that have an effect. And it's not only for bad, it can also be for good. Right? It can also be for good. If you have good thoughts about a person, you have good thoughts about a person, you can actually benefit that person. And some of the Hasidic teachings talk about how a person should have good thoughts about another person, and just the good thoughts about that person alone can help elevate that person from a dark place, from a negative place, to a positive place, without that person even knowing about it. He's bonanta b'mkomo ve'enoi. Think about his place, but if you think about him in a positive way, he's already not there. He's not in that place. Your positive thoughts have elevated him from that bad place to a better place. It might not be good, but it's better than it was. So that our thoughts alone, through this metaphysical connection of the body to the soul and the soul to the spiritual realm, has an effect for good or bad in the world. it doesn't only work towards other people. It can also work towards yourself. Right? It can work towards yourself. If a person says, I don't know what I'm going to do if he does that. If he does that, I'm going to be sick. I'll kill myself. I'm going to go out of my mind. Yeah? If a person says that, I didn't really mean that. Even if a person doesn't mean it, but he says that, again, it's not superstition. In Judaism, there's a belief that this can ripple back towards a person. A person should not say these types of things, even though he doesn't mean it, and even if it's just exaggerating, even if it's just a colloquial way of speaking. Because we have the power of speech, and the power of speech is not just the ability to use words, it's a power, it's a force. Like we say, the power of the pen is mightier than the power of the sword. Yeah? Words, ideas are stronger than the actual physical ways in which we manipulate the world. And therefore, when a person says something like that, he's actually influencing the spiritual world in a negative way. His words and his thoughts are setting into motion certain forces, and those forces, right, will have the possibility of rebounding back to himself. If you take that pebble analogy, you throw that pebble in the pond. That's the word that you've just said. That's the sentence that's the exclamation that you've just made. So it sends the ripple to the other side of the pond, but then those ripples come back, right? And there's all types of interference. So that's the thing as well. A person should not speak or think evilly about others, and not against himself either. And it's clear, just psychologically speaking, a person thinks negative thoughts about himself, he's likely to put himself into a type of vicious cycle of depression, of lack of self-worth, right? Of paralysis. And you have to break that by thinking positively, looking for the good points, not only in other people, but in oneself as well. And Rabbi Nachman of Breslev, actually Rabbi Natan, his Talmud, who wrote a book called Likutei Halachos, which is basically based on Rabbi Nachman's Likutei Moran. Likutei Halachos, regarding the Torah of Rabbi Nachman, which talks about the Nekudos Tovos, the good points that we're talking about here, Rabbi Natan elaborates a bit about it and says, even if you look at a person who seems to be entirely, let's say, in the dark, but think about a nighttime sky, where that sky is studded with stars, and those stars are just little points of light. Compared to the backdrop of that black, dark sky, those little points of light are relatively insignificant. But if you focus on those points of light more and more and more, to the exclusion of the background, you actually start to realize that that point of light is a star. That star is a sun. That sun could be thousands times larger than our sun. The brightness and the light of the energy coming from that star is immense. So relative to the backdrop, it's true. It's just a little point of light. But if you focus on it, think about as far as what it actually is, what it's really worth, it's a tremendous, tremendous thing. Therefore, it's important to focus on, he says, these good points in others and in ourselves, even though it seems to be in comparison very little to the person's, let's say, negativity, the person's evil. But if you focus on the good points, right, you actually see that there's a tremendous potential positive energy within every person, even a Russia. So in any case, these are the Nekudos Tovos. So think about this then. The tremendous power, the tremendous worth that every human being has, that through the power of the neshama, we're able to conceive about all of the things that exist and to manipulate the world in so many different types of ways and have such a tremendous effect, so forth and so on. So when you consider how great a human being is, that should definitely elevate our appreciation for people and take people and ourselves much more seriously. Other people, in order to give them the respect that's due, and as far as ourselves, to demand from ourselves what we're responsible for doing. And that's because of our neshama. We're not like animals. We're much more than that. Second paragraph on that page. V'ata, now. B'ra'oseinu sheha'adam sholet b'chochmaso b'shnei olamim. Insofar as we see that a person with his intelligence can rule over two worlds, the physical and the non-physical, the physical and the spiritual, the finite and the infinite. In the lower world, the universe, and the upper world, the metaphysical realm. Why did God make known to us all of this? What do we need to know it all for? What difference does it make to God that I am an airhead? By which I mean to say I can contain all of the air that exists within my mind, or all of the waters of the sea in my brain, without my ears leaking. What does God need that for? The whole purpose of all of that, the ability that I can actually juggle elephants in my brain. Here's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 elephants simultaneously being juggled in the brain of Rabbi Ullman. You're seeing it live. It's being recorded. There are 8 elephants juggling around in my brain. Isn't that amazing? I have a veritable circus going on in my head. And I'm only talking about juggling elephants. What about all of those lions leaping through the fiery hoops on the right hand side, in my right hemisphere? Yes? It's like amazing. And there goes the flying trapeze act, and there's the tightrope walker. Don't you guys see it? You do, right? Think about it, yeah? So why did God do all of this? Why did He enable us to be able to do that? Juggle 8 2-ton elephants simultaneously in your brain, with another, 4 circus acts taking place simultaneously elsewhere. All of this is in order that we should be able to serve Hashem. Ein zekim lahaskil la'avdoi belevav shalem. In order that we should be able to understand, comprehend, become infused with the enlightenment to serve Hashem wholeheartedly. Why? When a person is able to understand and comprehend the wondrous things that exist, and according to this, the more science teaches you about existence, the more it helps you appreciate God, thereby enabling you to serve Him more wholeheartedly. So that science should not be viewed at all as a competition with God, preventing a person from believing in God. On the contrary, it should only enhance one's belief. Science is one of the tools that God gave us through our intellect to be able to probe our environment and appreciate all the more so the wondrous nature of existence. And by extrapolation, the wondrous nature of the creator of existence. So what? Science can explain how it happens. Therefore, God does not exist. It's a non sequitur. Because science can explain how it happens, God didn't make it happen. Az roi lachni atzmo l'shabed aguf u'l'neshama. And therefore, when a person is using his intellect to probe the wondrous nature of existence, the result should not to become haughty, to build some intellectual edifice, which we call the Tower of Babylon, to scale into heaven and pull God out of heaven, kill God. That's what they wanted to do. The Tower of Babylon. And let's not be fooled to think that the Torah was talking about literally people building a building, literally building a building that went all the way up to heaven with the intention of taking knives and spears to stab and kill God, which is the wording of the Midrash. Of course, that's not the point. So it's a metaphor. It's referring to the intellectual edifices that people construct heavenwardly with the intention of denying God, using these intellectual structures to assert that God does not exist. That's the Tower of Babel. Right? It's not an ancient construction. It's not an ancient building. It's a building which is still standing. It's still standing. And people are trying to scale it higher and higher and higher. What is that?
I mean, we didn't believe that Babel actually was a tower
well, there was a place in Babylon, right? When the Torah talks about the Tower of Babel, yes, let's not delude ourselves into thinking that it's talking literally, or at least only literally.
Right, okay.
Right? It's certainly referring to, right, metaphorically, the human tendency to want to build these constructs which are designed to pull God out of heaven. That's the injustice of it all. That's the decadence of it all. That's the because it's the very divine given intelligence which is supposed to be, which was given by us to discover God, that we use to cover God. Yeah, yeah. That's the infamy of it. And God, nevertheless, is tolerant and patient, long-suffering. He suffers this tragic indignity of giving human beings the intelligence they need to discover Him, who then use it, to cover Him up. I am God. And He's right. He's right. He is God. He's God because He was given this divine intelligence which makes Him godly. And that's why He's deluded into thinking that He's God, because He does have a piece of God in Him. He has the soul. The soul is from God. He has within Himself the power to be like God. The Midrash says that when God created mankind, He was such a burning inferno of spiritual light that the angels mistook Him for God. And they wanted to pronounce Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. They wanted to say the Kedusha to mankind. There's a very strong semblance between human beings and God, and that's because God imparted within us the neshama. Problem is, right, God did such a good job that we're actually convinced, we can be easily convinced that we are God. That's also part of free will. That's also part of free will. Listen, when God does something, He does it right. He wants to have free will, yeah, it's going to be free will. It's no game. It's the real deal. If it's free will, it's got to be free. You got to be free to do whatever you want, even if it means being God. Yeah? It's got to be. It's got to be that way. So God's also at fault for the cover-up job. Fault. I did like this for anyone watching, quote unquote. God is at fault for this cover-up job, but that's part of the deal. Right? You're probably familiar with the idea that the gematria. You know what gematrias are, right, Eric? Gematrias. The gematria of hateva, which is the word in Hebrew for nature, equals the same as that of Elokim. So God hides Himself in nature, and nature has that dual purpose, is what we're talking about here, science. You can either use science to uncover God, or you can use science to further the cover-up job.
I thought teva was like a modern Hebrew word, though.
No, not at all. No.
Oh.
No. Teva also comes from the word tavua mutba. Teva means tavua, something which is deeply rooted in. Mutba is form. And that's what Teva is. Teva is, right? Teva is the form of the world in which God's presence is very deeply rooted. But so deep that it's covered up. And you have to peel it away. Peel it away, 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 peel it away. If you peel it away, layer after layer, you might actually peel away so much that you're able to tap into the source and find the explosive, energetic presence of nuclear energy. And now that we found nuclear energy, we can use it to fuel our cities and our computers and send astronauts into space in order that we'll be able to chart, yes, existence.
In order that we can build a Tower of Babel.
Right, right. In order to explain away God through existence. That's how close you can get. Boom. Even if you get that close, you still have free will to be deflected. Yeah. You want to tell me that in this little speck, right here, between my cross-eyed vision, there's so much energy that I could wipe the United States off the face of the map. Now they want to do that. But in that little speck of energy, in that little space, that little speck of space, there's so much energy.
Don't think it.
Yeah. They could wipe entire cities off the face of the globe. Where? Am I seeing properly? Right? What's going on? It's an amazing thought. It's all that energy is packed in like somewhere. You know, if you divide the space defined by the tip of my finger 1,000,000 times, it's somewhere in there.
Wow.
That's the interface. That's the interface. Yeah. So the ramifications are explosive. Right? The question is, how do you relate and tap into that energy in terms of what explosion results? In any case, we're getting off topic. We're getting on topic. Let's get back off topic. Where are we again? We're somewhere in the second paragraph. Oh, that's the point. When we consider the great magnitude of human intelligence and all of the potential that's locked within that intelligence and can be unleashed, then a person should really learn to think quite highly of himself. No, he says no. Then he should use that same intelligence to subjugate himself, to lower himself, to humbly appreciate the one who bequeathed that intelligence to us. And to subjugate the body to the soul. Because all of these areas of wisdom, science, astrophysics, nuclear physics, and microbiology, and all of these things, it all comes from the neshama, from the soul, and not from the body. Because the soul directs the body like a rider does to a horse. And he guides it and conducts it and turns it to any side it wants. So the horse is certainly secondary to the man who's riding it. But the person is not secondary to the horse. Therefore, oy va'avoy, unfortunate is the lot of those who subjugate the soul to the body. And then they put what is of primary importance under the tutelage of that which is of secondary importance. It's a wonderfully exhilarating feeling to be riding a horse. The little person is underneath, is on top of a huge source of energy, and you're up there riding, you're galloping. If you know how to ride Western, I don't know how you guys do it in England. Right? You guys do it the lady way. Right? In America, we ride Western. One-handed. Yeah. And you're up there balancing, you're riding, and your hair, if you had any, your payas are flying in the wind. Yeah. And you want to turn right. You just effortlessly move your wrist, Western style, to the right, boom, and that horse goes over in that direction. And you want to go left, in that direction. Yeah. I love horseback riding. So I took my son-in-law horseback riding. My son-in-law never rode a horse. Not only is he from England, and I try not to hold that against him, but he never even rode a horse, not even English style. So he's on the horse, come on, let's go. And I look back and he's like, his horse has got his head down in the bushes, racking away all the weeds and eating, and he's like kicking the sides of the horse and it won't go, and he's pulling on the reins and the horse is just chomping. He's got no control of the horse whatsoever. The horse is totally controlling. He's powerless. So I turned back and I ride over and I said, you got to pull up the reins. I said, I'm pulling up the reins. I said, you're pulling the reins up but down. You don't know how to pull them. You got to pull them up. So he pulls his head up out of the weeds. Take your hands like this and pull up. So he pulls up and the head lifts his horse. He lifts his head. Now give him a kick. Let him go forward. Okay, so what does he do? He kicks, so he takes his knees and he like presses the sides of the horse. No, you got to kick him with your heel. Boom. Behind the stomach. Not hard, just the right way. Boom, with the right pressure, you get him going. So you go, boom, the horse takes off. Now he's out of control. He loses the reins. I have to run after the guy, take hold of the horse's reins and get the thing under control. Why am I going through all these antics? Because that's exactly how we live our life. If you know how to let that rider ride the horse, you can glide through life effortlessly, fluidly, with style, with composure, with honor, and with the precision movements and decisions at the right time. You know how to turn right, you know how to turn left, you know when to stop. But if you don't know the tools to control your the rider becomes a slave to the horse.
But that's how you learn.
You have to learn how to ride. Yeah, it's true. But my point is, people don't learn. And what happens is that the body, like the horse I was describing in my analogy, the body is just tearing away at the food, tearing away at the women, tearing away at the wine, tearing away at the booze, tearing away at the drugs, tearing away at the sailboat, tearing away at this and that, and the can't, right? And the soul has just got ain't no need. Like the soul has no control of the situation. The body's just taking it everywhere, doing whatever he wants. There's a beautiful analogy, therefore, that and this is kind of related to what we were talking about the other day, that it's got to go moyach, lev, kaved. Then you become a melech. But if it's the other way around, kaved, lev, moyach, kolem. It's just, the body's just got its head in the weeds, in the grass, in earthliness. And the soul's got there's just nothing to do. So it's got no control of the situation. Yeah.
Definitions? Molech?
Moyach is the brain. Lev, the heart. Kaved, the liver. So a person's thoughts affect his feelings, and then the two of them tell the body, the liver, the seat of the blood, what to do. Then he's a melech. Then he's in control, and he lives through life royally. But if it's the other way around, he lets his viscerals affect how he feels, and then the two of them gang up on the mind and tell the mind what to think and what to do. So he ends up acting like a behemoth. He loses control. His body is taking his neshama into the weeds. Yes. So let's stop here.